Hello, welcome back to Out on the Line podcast. My name is Jeff, and I'm here with my co-host Alex. As always, Alex, how we doing this week?
I am ready to rock it with Crockett. I don't mean to spoil it, but boy, oh boy, I'm filled with enthusiasm for this album. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing fantastic, and yes, folks, we do have another Charley Crockett album. Now, we have not reviewed all of the recent ones he's come out with because he is, if nothing else, prolific when it comes to writing country music. Charley Crockett and the album Clovis. Now, this one had a little bit of like controversy that started out. So he had like it was getting held up by labels and he tried to like sneaky release it and then it got taken down again. And so Charley Crockett is in his like Sturgill before A Sailor's Guide to Earth era, where he's like really, I think, bucking against the industry. And I think while Charley Crockett himself, like if you meet the guy, it seems like he's as nice as can possibly be. He definitely fits the bill these days of, if there's anybody that's considered an outlaw country artist these days, I think Charley Crockett is your guy. So he did the Sagebrush trilogy, which, Lonesome Drifter is, I mean, absolutely fantastic album. You can find that review that we did for that album. I don't even know how many videos ago, but several. Just scroll down our page. You'll see it. You might even see something else you like on there, folks. Now this album Clovis, what I liked about it, it's not part of that same like Sagebrush, trilogy, but he clearly found, and not that he like drastically changed the sound for that Sagebrush trilogy, but he clearly like honed in and defined the Charley Crockett sound. And it's very much that like country western, this album, more than those even, made me think that Charley Crockett should score a movie.
That would actually be yes, because the music itself is very cinematic. Steering very, very hard into the very, very Texas country sound on this one.
Mm-hmm.
And yet also kind of refusing to be constrained by the genre. There are some little tweaks and tricks that weren't necessarily in Lonesome Drifter or Dollar a Day or even Age of the Ram, which we didn't do, that I think flavor Clovis and make it one of my most favorite albums of his that we've heard so far. And like you said, he's prolific. He's done like 20 albums in 10 years or some shit. So yeah, curious what you thought.
So you came in hot saying how enthusiastic you were. I don't know that I'm quite at that level. Like I think I like the Sagebrush trilogy stuff a little bit more than this, but this was still like, if you want some of the best like country music writing that you can get these days, because like Sturgill's kind of hopped off the country music train. It's like obviously he still sounds like a country artist because that's just what his voice sounds like. But you can't tell me Mutiny After Midnight is a country album at this point. I think a lot of people lump it into that because Sturgill kind of always was a country artist, but he's branched off and done his own thing. Like he's completely kind of subverted genre, done his own thing. I think what Charley Crockett has done, especially on this album a little bit, is he involves a little bit of like funk, a little bit of R&B. Like he brings in some other musical influences, but at no point do you ever feel like it's anything but country. He even has a Johnny Cash cover in here, which was fantastic. He added a little kind of like funky slide to Johnny Cash song. Now, I don't know if that Don't Take Your Guns to Town was originally Johnny Cash song, but I guarantee you that's who everybody knows that sang it. I think he always has some form where he says I flew into or I flew out of somewhere. That's like a lyrical thing. I don't know if that's a tick that he has now or if he just forgets that he's already done that on a previous album, but he absolutely does that. Like every single album, he's got a lyric that starts with I flew into somewhere or I flew out of somewhere, or it was really hot. I really like those lights, like the Albuquerque lights. He had Crystal City lights on the Lonesome Drifter album. So he definitely has like kind of these markers that it's a Charley Crockett album or it's a Charley Crockett song. I think what he is really moving into with this album more than he maybe had with the previous, with the Sagebrush, that I like, that I think he did a little better, is I think his voice is forming more, is becoming much more of a like just heat-seeking missile of a country music weapon. I think he always was a great guitar player. He always was a great, like at song structure, the great hook writer. I think that's one thing that he's always been strong with, is like every song has a place that it comes back to. He doesn't do a lot of like stream of consciousness, not like Bob Dylan where you can't buy a chorus to save your life. I think he does a great job with making this music feel like it's a story. You're kind of like, he's on one horse and you're on another, and you're riding along together and experiencing this at the same time. I think that is a really great talent that he has, is making you feel like you're in the song as much as he is. I think his ability to have characters and storytelling, a song like Eagle and the Crow is fantastic. One-Eyed Jack is, he uses metaphor really well as well. Like that's a very country thing, is like, oh, that's slicker than cheese on a hot July day. That kind of thing is what he does perfectly. I think he's carved out his own niche within country music. And it's funny because that's a niche that has always existed, but I feel like now he is the flag bearer for that.
And I think when you talk about like the development in his voice, I think it's a confidence in it that for me is really exemplified in this album, where we've moved from homage. It was never cosplay. I like Orville Peck well enough, but it's a little too gimmicky.
Feels like a character with him.
Feels like too much of a character over the music. And it's like, you have a cool voice and you write decent songs. You don't have to do all the gimmickry. So Charley Crockett never did that. He avoided the cosplay trap. And for a long time, it was like strong homage. This for me felt like a part where he really transcended that, and kind of, maybe it's a crazy thing to say when he's 42 and a billion albums in, but it does kind of feel like finally settling in and coming into his own. There's a tendency, I think, on some of the past stuff, as much as I enjoyed it, you did get a handful of songs per album that would feel kind of underdeveloped. It's a similar issue that like Zach Bryan has. Zach Bryan times 10,000, where like he's a prolific writer, but how many of these things are getting subsequent passes and revisions and reflection versus being kind of hustled out? That problem to me with Charley Crockett, insofar as it's even a problem, was gone on this one. This felt really focused. At almost an hour long, it doesn't even feel like it. It feels epic. It feels like big in scope and scale, and like very, very lush. Like you look at the album cover and like the like super saturated colors and the wide open spaces, and you feel that in the music. So there's great texture and scope and scale, but it never feels like an hour's worth of a chore. I can't really think of any stinkers on this one. Anything like the worst ... one on here is even still like a really like excellent piece of work. Like you can make certain critiques on like, I ain't riding anymore. The rhymes are pretty simple. The songwriting is nowhere near as sophisticated as on the rest of the album, but like pretty damn ironclad rodeo song, traditional country. Like it serves its purpose. So like the worst song on the album is serviceable. That's pretty damn good. Does justice to the Johnny Cash cover. There's a lot of meat on the bone with this one. And it was interesting to listen to this in a couple contexts. The context of the album being released and then being taken off of Spotify and then coming back, because we didn't make it to the first release. We didn't have a chance to do Age of the Ram. We didn't have a chance to do Clovis when it first came out. So for it to come back out, that whole thing, like you said, bucking the system, very interesting. So he's the outlaw, he's the maverick. It kind of cuts both ways in terms of his personality, because like you were saying, oh, he seems like a nice guy. There is a faction that would heartily disagree with you on that. And it has been very interesting diving into that. This doesn't necessarily have as much to do with this specific album, so maybe it is or isn't worth talking about, but the recent controversy with his openers, Twin
Oh,
Temple. That whole thing. You follow that?
yes, because they were like and I don't know if they're Satanists, but they do like satanic music.
They are Satanists. Yep.
I think the problem with that is he probably doesn't have. I think a lot of artists don't have a lot of say of who their opener is. I think when you get enough swing, you can choose who you want to have come out and open for you. You have more say with that. But I think he realized, he's like, look, I don't think he necessarily has the problem with them. I think the issue is like, I'm getting, these are going to be a lot of like Southern country fans that come out to my show. And if my opener is a satanic indie band, like that's going to be a problem, that, and just one that I don't want to deal with. So he's like, which problem do I deal with? The whole tour being like that? Or do I just cut this off, rip this band-aid off, deal with this blowback now, and then go on with the tour?
Well, and what's crazy about it is he should have been more hands-on with them, because he does in this instance have power. This was done on the recommendation of collaborator Shooter Jennings, whose smudgy little fingerprints are all over this one, I would say, in a positive way. For as much as I'm not like crazy about a lot of solo Shooter Jennings, in the capacity of producer and collaborator here, really, really works. Shooter Jennings works with Twin Temple, and they are avowed Satanists. I think the woman, I think her name's AJ, talks about like it's fun to go shopping for a Loretta Lynn album and a human skull on the same day. And yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of that's like audacity to live the gimmick, but they're avowed Satanists. And I've listened to some of their music before this, and it's like just okay. It's not really for me. But what's really interesting about this whole thing is Charley Crockett should have vetted them. He took it on Shooter Jennings' word, like, oh, I'm working with this group. They're going to put out a country album in October. You should have them open for you. Didn't do enough vetting. And then when it got back to him, an avowed Christian, that they had like all this satanic imagery, he paid them. And then he told them, you're not opening for me.
Yeah.
They, to their credit, were pretty gracious about the situation. They're like, we don't feel like our artistic freedom is being infringed upon. It's Charley Crockett's freedom to have whoever he wants open for him. And they didn't come out and say it, but it's like, this is great you're in Rolling Stone telling your side of the story, so it's great exposure. It made Charley Crockett, I don't think he looks like a dick, but it made him look like a dick to a lot of people that were already susceptible to wanting to see him that way. And everyone's trying to be like, he's MAGA coded, and it's like, he says a million times how much he fucking hates Trump, and how much he hates MAGA. But some people contain multitudes, so he can hate MAGA and also be a card-carrying Christian who's like, I don't want Satan anywhere near my fucking music. It's complex. So for like the right to try to cancel him over the Donald Trump stuff, and the left to try to cancel him over the Twin Temple stuff, it's I think for me typifies like, if both sides are trying to cancel you, you are either an asshole or you're doing something right. Your mileage may vary with which concept that is here. I think he lives the outsider gimmick, the outlaw gimmick, the maverick gimmick. No industry, no label, no political stripe can tame me. Try as you might. And I think it's that kind of attitude that can rub people the wrong way for him as a person, but makes his music very exciting and makes it like there's such a sense of like, my balls won't fit in my Wranglers. Like there's a snake in my boot and my Colt Python. Like there's a ton of personality that bleeds through into this. And again, the collaboration with Shooter Jennings, to me, really takes this over the top.
Yeah. And I think that's where, if you're going to compare him to any of those like old school, outlaw country artists or whatever, I know he does the Johnny Cash cover on here, which is funny that Shooter Jennings, I probably had some influence on him doing a Johnny Cash cover, because like Waylon Jennings and Johnny Cash were very good friends. I mean, they were in the Highwaymen together. It's just funny that he didn't do a Waylon Jennings cover on this. And I think Shooter Jennings is much less like Waylon Jennings than people would would assume he would be. I think it's like Hank Williams the third is very much not like Hank Williams Jr. I think it's that kind of situation where Shooters still does country stuff, but I think he's very much more like a punk country kind of thing where it's like buck against the country system rather than try to work within it. I think that's kind of cool that they that he would collaborate with Charley Crockett too, because it's like Charley Crockett is very much like just very traditional country. Like if you're going to compare him to any, it's like Merle Haggard, Hank Williams Sr., like the original, Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash. You can pull some comparisons to as well, especially with the storytelling and characters and stuff that he uses. I think Charley Crockett paying Twin Temple and saying thanks but no thanks, but I'm not going to leave you out to dry. I don't know if it was his intention for them to get this much exposure, but I got to think they got way more exposure from this situation than they ever would have opening for Charley Crockett. Because as much as we love Charley Crockett, he is a kind of side character when it comes to country music. I think there's people that love him, but as far as like your non bro country artists, that's Sturgill, that's Tyler Childers, Coulter Wall, I would say is even a pretty high step above that. Like Charley Crockett's very much a side character at this point in country music. I think people that love traditional country music love him, but at no point I think is he going to outsell Luke Bryan or Blake Shelton or any of the newer like Morgan Wallen or any of those guys. I think if you want this style of music, Charley Crockett does it better than anybody, but he's not selling out stadiums. You know what I mean? It's like he's very successful in what he does, but Twin Temple being in Rolling Stone is probably way more exposure than they ever would have gotten being the opener for Charley Crockett.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think it's his. I'll go ahead and call it poor judgment in not vetting them more thoroughly ahead of time, which again, a frequent collaborator. He's done like what, 4 albums with Shooter Jennings?
I think so, at least. Yeah.
Something like that. Like, you're taking it like if you told me like, hey, you gotta hire my buddy so and so. I think he'd do a really great job working at your pizza parlor. And then I'm like, he's a crazed heroin addict with a gun for a leg. Like
I
the
haven't
lady
seen him in a while.
Things have changed. Yeah. Like, it's tough. Like you're Shooter Jennings, again, like the crossover of they've got a country focused album coming out in October. And this, I think, will be a good way to get people to wet people's beaks. And it's like, again, I've actually listened to their music well before this, like as far back as like 2019. It's satanic doo-wop, which sounds cooler than it actually is. I again, card carrying Satanists, and I don't like necessarily have a problem with that. It's like, whatever you're gonna do. Not to go into a whole thing, but it's like Satan, the misnomer with Satanism is not like, oh, it's the devil and you worship evil and all that kind of stuff. They describe it as they're like, there's no like broad dogma so that it can kind of be whatever you want it to be. And I'm like, all right, well, I don't like really have a moral problem with that, but it does smack up. Like they have a song called Burn Your Bible. It smacks of audacity. Like the right type of person is going to see that and be like, oh, pearl clutch. And it no press is bad press, right? And I think that's kind of the situation we find ourselves in here, which we've kind of gotten away from the album and the music. But again, I think it speaks to what makes his music so interesting is he's very instinctual. I think that's reflected even in like the band recording this live. Apparently they all caught COVID and then they recorded this. And Shooter Jennings called it Clovid. But like the enthusiasm of the live sound, it's very fresh, it's organic. There was a lot of stylistic diversity here, so he's a real shooting from the hip type, and his mouth can get him in trouble, but his instincts can lead to some very interesting music. Again, very vivid, very diverse, very cinematic. There's a lot to like here, a lot of meat on the bone. I'm wondering if you had any standout favorites on here.
Standout favorite for sure, Eagle and the Crow.
Good one.
Image of a Woman. I think was fantastic as well. I think he does a great job. There were songs that I thought were like really fun, like Honky Tonk Philosophy was fun, like One Eyed Jack was fun, but like Image of a Woman, Eagle and the Crow were just really good songwriting. I like that he had the song literally called the country music, and it was, kind of went into what he feels real country music is, while also acknowledging that it can be a lot of different things. I think he is very sure of himself. I think is a big strength of his, while knowing, I think he is aware of like how popular he is too. Like he's not trying to, he's not mad that other people are more popular than him. But I think that's why he pumps out these albums, because he's like, by hook or by crook, I'm going to be up on that big stage, and I love that. And I think that is where the real country philosophy comes from. And it's like, I have these things that I want to say. I have whether it's characters I want to talk about, these experiences I've had, a woman that broke my heart, whatever it is, like, I have these things that I want to say, and I have an interesting way to say them. And I'm going to put out as many albums as I need to until people get on board with that. And I love that idea. I love that, when was the last time he took more than a year between albums? I don't think he ever has since he started. It's a consistency of really good songwriting, especially over the last like half dozen. I mean, Age of the Ram was excellent too, and we didn't even review that one. But like that Sagebrush trilogy, Dollar a Day, that album, it might be my favorite one by him. I mean, it's just, every album has something that I love. And it's funny because I'm sure there's a lot of people that'll say he's too repetitive, or he always talks about the same things and all this stuff. And it's like, well, any artist that you like is probably going to talk about the same things quite a bit, because the same things are always going to piss them off or upset them or make them happy. So it's like, those are the types, whatever gets you going is what you write about. And in a lot of cases for people, those tend to be the same things. And the best artists find different ways to write about those things, different stories to tell around those things. And he does a great job with that. I think whether you want a true storyteller type of songwriter, he's got that in the bag. If you need a good, like, down on your luck, heartbroken song, he's got that in the bag. Your dog died, your truck broke down, like mama's in jail, like whatever it is, like he's got that type of song for you. And if you are really into a traditional style of country music, like you have your like your country, like big pop star country, like back in the day, Garth Brooks, you have a guy now these days, Zach Top, who also I think is excellent. But it's like, you have that style of country music where you'd see it on CMT in the 90s. And then you have this style where that would never get played on CMT. But this is what I feel is truly country music. Like, this is at its core, he is the one carrying the torch for what like true country music is.
Yeah, I think in a like very, very pure sense. But again, with some moments where he's not afraid to add a little bit of an extra element. I would say 3 of the songs that you named, I bumped onto. One Eye Jack, big time standout for me.
Mhm.
Like I love like the imagery of the playing card as like a like metaphor for like the hidden motives. There's great horn work on this one, along with like killer guitar. One of the best performances on the album. Image of a Woman, one of the purest country songs we got on here. Again, beautiful steel guitar, haunting atmosphere, emotional storytelling. Um, Eagle and the Crow, I think, is like a super standout for me. Pure outlaw country rocker. Again, Shooter Jennings smudgy fingerprints all over this thing. Great groove to it. The live band chemistry is off the charts.
Mhm.
The most evocative of Waylon Jennings, again, like because of the shooter touch. And just a great message, like stand by your convictions. Like there's packed into one song, there's a lot of homage, a lot of lyrical meat, and a lot of cool things happening musically. And again, it's all the live band atmosphere. I love when albums are recorded live. And that extends to, like, obviously as a Grateful Dead fan, like I love live shows, but like when we talk about like a polished studio album, when it is recorded with the whole band live, there is nothing like the
Mhm.
energy and the enthusiasm. And so many bands and artists are steering into that these days. And it is a wise choice for Charley Crockett, because he just doesn't have a sound or an instinct that I think would be appropriate to be canned. I don't think it can be canned. Again, he's a shooting from the hip, organic kind of guy,
Mhm.
and it shines through. And finally, the songwriting feels fresh and spontaneous without feeling underbaked. I think for me, it's he's really, in a short amount of time, for as much as I liked him since I discovered him, he's come a long way. I know you're not as sold on this as you are the Sagebrush trilogy. But this wasn't necessarily a paradigm shift, but it was a reason to get excited. And it was a really great, I would say, like, incremental shift into a new gear. And if it continues on like this, I'm excited. And if it gets even better, fantastic. We'll see if he goes down new avenues or if he's content to be the country standard bearer. I'm going to go ahead and give this an 8.5 out of 10.
I am giving it an 8 out of 10. So it's very strong album, compared to, I think Dollar a Day is probably, and Lonesome Drifter are my gold standards. If those are 9s and 10s, like this one's an 8. But like, I just don't know how many other country artists these days are getting an 8 from me with some of the albums they've come out with. So, really, really strong effort from Charley Crockett. And I do want to shout out also one more song, the title track, Clovis, where it's an instrumental song, but you want to talk about cinematic, like just beautiful to listen to. I could listen to that on its own. If he did a whole album of just that, I would listen to it.
Hell
And
yeah.
I would just feel like I was back, watching Gunsmoke reruns on whatever channel they used to, ACM or whatever it was that they used to run those on back in the day. But it really, yeah, for me, 8 out of 10. For you, 8.5 out of 10. Another strong effort from Charley Crockett. Very much looking forward to what he comes out with next. That very well could be in a couple months.
He's like the King Giz of the country
Yeah,
scene. You know what I mean?
incredible.
It's great. And like, even like the imagery, like the 10-gallon hat and the scruffy look and the unique perspective, down to his name, Charley Crockett. Charley Crockett, like Sturgill Simpson's a great name. Tyler Childers,
Mhm.
Coulter Wall. These are badass names. I'm sorry, this dude might be super duper nice. I don't know. But like, you talk about bro country, contemporary radio friendly country, Tucker Wetmore. That dude, I would love it if he got an endorsement for a mattress company. And it could be called Tucker Wetmore Beds. I think that would be super awesome. That would change my entire opinion of him overnight. But until he does that, Tucker Wetmore, Chadley Chudfuck, like they all just like these weak chin names. I can't abide the softening of country music. And I don't even mean to like turn that into like a masculinity thing, because like Margot Price is a hard woman. Casey Musgraves can be hard when she wants to. Willow Avalon
Mhm.
has like a hard edge to her. Like, so like, it's not about masculinity. Like, the ladies are bringing the heat too. But like,
It's a strength and personality.
it's a
I think it-
strength and personality. Country is not a soft genre. It's not a touchy-feely genre. There's vulnerability, but there's cockiness and personality and grit and POV. And when you take all of that out of country, God help you. So Charley Crockett, keeping the outlaw tradition alive, keep working with Shooter. Hey, Shooter, Red Lobster later? My treat. Yeah,
Oh,
just
we're
keep it
friends.
going.
We're friends.
You will not sink this putt, jackass.
Well, now that you folks have listened to this full review, we do have another Charley Crockett album that we reviewed last year, I think, called Dollar a Day. And you can go check that out. And where can they find that, Alex?
Dollar a day. Let me tell you something. I wish we got $1 a video because we've got hundreds of them at youtube.com/C/out on that line. I actually wish we had multiple dollars per video. Just as like if every view was $1, I think that would be fair.
Yes.
Because Jeff and I would have cleared 6 figs by now.
Oh yeah.
And there are no two guys more deserving of that. You talk about Charley Crockett preserving the outlaw country tradition. I like to think that we're preserving the music journalism tradition. And make no mistake, what we do on the channel, I cannot stress it enough, is journalism. Like if you submitted us for some kind of journalistic award,
J.
capital J, big J, journos, okay? Like we're up there with like Spotlight, okay? All the Catholic Church abuse. Yeah. Like fascinating story, whatever. But did you even see what fucking Billie Eilish wore to the VMAs? Well, we're going to bust that story wide open. That is what we do here. We're dedicated to quality. We're dedicated to the things that matter and the shit you want to hear and want to know about. We've been very clear about this, gang. Like we're not going to alter our opinion. Now, I mean, if the money comes in, maybe we will.
Yeah.
But until such time, we're going to have integrity for the time being, where we're not necessarily, you might not like what we have to say about the stuff you suggest. But God damn it, we're going to listen to it and we're going to talk about it. And you're going to get your entertainment value. I swear to God. And all you have to do to make that happen is subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so that you get notifications when new videos come out, hit the thumbs up to like the video, hype the video. And if you leave a comment and you leave enough of them on enough videos, you might unseat friend of the show, Brandon, as top commenter, top dog, top.
Oh, please do.
Pig on the farm.
I want to see that badge disappear from him and go to somebody else, if only so I can point it out to him over text.
I am going to call him. I avoid calling people at all costs. But if he loses that badge, I am going to call him. And I'm going to do the Eric Cartman. You are not top commenter. You were, and you lost your badge. Like he even gives a shit. And quite frankly, we should be celebrating the fact that our very good friend is being a good friend and engaging with the channel and supporting us and listening to most of these. This will be a true test of whether or not he listens all the way to the end. You know what I mean? Like we should be celebrating a friend like Brandon. But you know what? A journalist shouldn't have friends. A good journalist shouldn't have friends. They should have sources and enemies. That's it. So what are you going to be? Are you going to be a source or an enemy? You got to figure it the fuck out, and you got to do it quick at youtube.com/C/out on that line. Subscribe today.
Yeah, do what the man says, folks. Especially you, Brandon. I know you're going to get in this comment section because I know you're going to listen to this all the way through. And this might be a thing every episode until he loses that top commenter badge. We're going to say something mean about you, Brandon. So catch us next time.